In the time of history, the Egyptian-Hittite peace treaty stands as a remarkable testament to diplomacy's power. Often called the Eternal Treaty or the Silver Treaty, it is a unique relic, representing the earliest known surviving peace treaty. This historic accord was forged between the mighty Egyptian Pharaoh Ramesses II and the Hittite Empire's formidable king, Hattusili III, around 1259 BC. However, it's important to note that this treaty did not immediately bring about peace. Instead, an atmosphere of enmity persisted between Hatti and Egypt for several years until a subsequent alliance treaty was inked. The treaty's story is shrouded in archaeological discovery and scholarly investigation. Egyptian inscriptions regarding the Battle of Kadesh, a significant conflict that had occurred some 16 years earlier, provided key clues. These inscriptions, displayed on large temple walls since ancient times, were initially translated by Champollion. Yet, it wasn't until 1858 that they were linked to the Hittites mentioned in the Bible. Then, in 1906, during Hugo Winkler's Anatolian excavations, cuneiform tablets were discovered, corresponding with the Egyptian text. These tablets revealed that the inscriptions were initially translated from silver tablets exchanged between the two parties, although these originals have since been lost to history. The Egyptian version of this treaty, inscribed in hieroglyphics, adorned the walls of two temples in Thebes, the Ramesseum and the precinct of Amun-Re at the Temple of Karnak. Remarkably, the scribes responsible for the Egyptian version even included descriptions of the figures and seals on the Hittite tablet that had been delivered. In contrast, the Hittite version of the treaty was found in Hattusa, the Hittite capital, which now lies in modern-day Turkey. This version was preserved on baked clay tablets within the extensive archives of the Hittite royal palace. While two of these tablets are on display at the Museum of the Ancient Orient in Istanbul, the third is exhibited in the Berlin State Museums, Germany. Notably, a copy of this treaty is prominently displayed on a wall in the United Nations headquarters in New York City. The treaty's backdrop is a long-standing war between the Hittite Empire and Egypt. For over 2 centuries, they had vied for control over the eastern Mediterranean lands. The conflict culminated in an Egyptian invasion in 1274 BC, halted by the Hittites at Kadesh, a city along the Orontes River in modern-day Syria. The Battle of Kadesh resulted in heavy losses for both sides but failed to decisively conclude the battle or the war. The conflict dragged on inconclusively for about 15 more years before the treaty was eventually signed. Despite its title, the Treaty of Kadesh was inked long after the battle, and interestingly, Kadesh isn't even mentioned in the text. Scholars believe the treaty was likely negotiated by intermediaries, with the two monarchs never meeting in person. Both Egypt and the Hittite Empire had compelling reasons to seek peace. Egypt faced the growing threat of the Sea Peoples, while the Hittites were wary of the ascending power of Assyria to the east. The treaty, ratified in the 21st year of Ramesses II's reign in 1258 BC, remained in effect until the eventual collapse of the Hittite Empire, roughly 80 years later. The seeds of Hittite-Egyptian relations were sown when Hatti assumed the dominant role in central Syria, previously held by Mitanni. This shift sparked tensions that would persist for nearly a century. During the conquest of Mitanni, Hittite forces poured into Syria, establishing their rule over Egyptian vassals in Kadesh and Amurru. Egypt, however, never truly accepted the loss of these northern Syrian territories, and their subsequent actions reflected their refusal to concede defeat at the hands of the Hittite Empire. Egypt's endeavors to reclaim the lost territories, especially during Akhenaten's rule, were futile. It was only under the leadership of Seti I, Ramesses II's father, that significant progress was made. Seti I's Kadesh Amurru campaign against the Hittite armies achieved a victory near Kadesh, yet, these gains were short-lived, as Kadesh was eventually relinquished by Seti in a later treaty. The modest gains by Egypt marked the beginning of a protracted conflict between the two empires, spanning the following 2 decades. Imagine an epic clash of empires in the ancient world, a battle shrouded in the sands of time, where the lines between victory and defeat blurred. This is the Battle of Kadesh, a confrontation so pivotal that it left a lasting mark on history. The story of this battle is primarily told through Egyptian literary accounts like the Bulletin and the poem, complemented by pictorial reliefs. However, it's crucial to recognize the bias inherent in these sources. Pharaoh Ramesses II, in full control of monumental building projects, leveraged these resources for propagandist purposes. He used them to trumpet his supposed triumph at Kadesh. The stage was set in the hope of restoring Egypt to its former glory under Thutmose III. Ramesses assembled a formidable force, marching through Syria with 4 divisions of troops. His goal? To annihilate the Hittite presence in the region. On the opposing side, Hittite king Mawatali II mustered an army of allies to halt Egypt's territorial ambitions. The decisive moment arrived at Kadesh. Ramesses, perhaps overeager, raced ahead of his troops and, relying on unreliable intelligence from captured prisoners, set up camp across from the town. The Hittite forces, cunningly concealed behind the town, launched a surprise attack against the Amun division, sending them into disarray. Ramesses valiantly tried to rally his troops against the Hittite chariots, but victory came only when reinforcements from Amurru arrived, pushing the Hittites back. Though the Egyptians survived this ordeal at Kadesh, it was far from the glorious triumph Ramesses had hoped for. Instead, it resulted in a costly stalemate with heavy losses on both sides. Following an unsuccessful attempt to advance further the next day, Ramesses, in an act of self-promotion, returned to Egypt boasting of his individual valor at Kadesh. Despite technically winning the battle, Ramesses ended up losing the war. Mawatali and his army regained Amurru and expanded the buffer zone with Egypt further southward. Undeterred by these initial setbacks, Ramesses embarked on another campaign in his 8th year of rule, capturing the city of Dapur. This conquest was intended as a bridgehead for future campaigns but ultimately reverted to Hittite control. Despite multiple campaigns into Syria, all conquered territories eventually returned to Hittite hands. Recognizing the futility of holding Syria, Ramesses ended the northern campaign. This period holds historical significance as it marks the end of direct, official military confrontations between the Hittites and Egyptians. While hostilities and military conquests in Syria characterized earlier years, the Battle of Kadesh was the final overt clash. Some historians even liken this period to a Cold War between Hatti and Egypt. The story of Kadesh doesn't end on the battlefield. In the annals of diplomacy, the Kadesh Peace Treaty holds a special place. This treaty, although created later, marked the end of hostilities. It was preserved in 2 original Egyptian versions, one at the Temple of Karnak and the other at the Ramesseum. These inscriptions describe the monumental battle against the great king of Kati. Across the ancient world in Hattusa, modern-day Boğazkale, Turkey, an astonishing discovery was made. German archaeologist Hugo Winkler, working with Theodore Macready, uncovered the Hittite version of the treaty. These clay tablets, inscribed in Akkadian, revealed the same content as the Egyptian version. This momentous find shed light on the battle and its aftermath from the Hittite perspective. The Battle of Kadesh, a clash of titans, a tale of propaganda, diplomacy, and conflict, remains a captivating episode in the annals of ancient history. In ancient diplomacy, one treaty stands out as a testament to the art of peacemaking between 2 mighty powers, the Treaty of Ramesses II and Hattusili III. This treaty is not just any accord, it's one of the most significant international peace treaties known from the ancient Near East. This remarkable document is divided into points, where both the Egyptians and Hittites make pledges of brotherhood and peace. Their objectives were clear: to ensure lasting harmony and to put an end to the costly Syrian campaigns that had plagued their lands. It was a promise of peace and alliance. Crucially, the treaty established boundaries for their conflicting claims in Syria. Both sides vowed not to invade each other's land, ensuring peace would prevail in these contested territories. Moreover, they pledged mutual aid, primarily military support, if either was attacked by external forces or faced internal rebellion. Extradition of political refugees was another key clause. It was agreed that refugees would be returned to their home country. Ramesses II even promised to support Hattusili's successors in maintaining the Hittite throne against dissenters. What's intriguing is the inclusion of the gods in the treaty. An appeal to the gods was the ultimate guarantee of adherence to the treaty. The gods, believed to bestow curses and blessings, served as a potent penalty for violations. This treaty is unique because we have versions from both sides, allowing a direct comparison. While mostly symmetrical, there are slight differences. The Hittite version employs a somewhat evasive preamble, stating that hostility between Egypt and Hatti had never existed because of a treaty valid forever. In contrast, the Egyptian version straightforwardly acknowledges their past conflict. The treaty bound not only the current rulers but also their descendants. They swore never to commit acts of aggression against each other, to repatriate each other's refugees and criminals, and to aid each other in quelling rebellions. If an external enemy threatened one, the other would come to their aid, a pact sealed before 1,000 gods and witnessed by the elements of the earth and sky. But interpretations of this treaty have varied over time. Some saw it as a treaty of both peace and alliance, marking the end of hostilities. Others questioned whether it truly signaled peace. Instead, they argued it was a strategic alliance, driven more by self-interest than a quest for peace itself. Debates also surrounded who initiated these negotiations. Did Ramesses, who had lost Syrian territories in earlier conflicts, seek peace? Or was it Hattusili, perhaps recognizing his own vulnerability, who approached Egypt? The emerging consensus suggests that the treaty aimed at forming a mutually beneficial alliance rather than merely ending a war. The Treaty of Ramesses II and Hattusili III, a remarkable testament to diplomacy, alliance, and the interplay of ancient powers, remains a captivating piece of history. In the ancient world of shifting powers and grand ambitions, Ramesses II and Hattusili III, rulers of Egypt and the Hittite Empire, played a high-stakes diplomatic game that would redefine their destinies. Ramesses, though once a mighty conqueror, found himself in a precarious situation. After 15 years of relentless attempts to reclaim lost Syrian territories, it dawned on him that matching the military glory of his predecessor, Thutmose III, was a fading dream. Instead, he yearned for an international victory through diplomacy to burnish his legacy as pharaoh. His grand plan? Accept the status quo in Syria. He'd let the Hittites hold their portion, while Egypt gained access to Hittite ports for commerce and secured trading rights as far north as Ugarit. The financial and security benefits of peace would eclipse the costs of war. But there was another shadow looming over Egypt, the rising power of Assyria. Ramesses couldn't allow the Assyrians to encroach on Syria, that would put them uncomfortably close to Egypt. By aligning with the Hittites, he hoped they would be allies against the Assyrian menace. And then came the sweetest part of the deal, bragging rights. Ramesses could present the treaty as a Hittite surrender, strengthening his image as Egypt's unassailable ruler. The strategic alliance, disguised as a victory, showcased his supreme leadership. Hattusili III, on the other hand, faced a different challenge. He ruled under a cloud of doubt about his legitimacy, seen by many as a usurper. His nephew, Hattusili, coveted the throne and had sought refuge in Egypt after a failed coup. With Ramesses harboring his rival, Hattusili, Hattusili knew that an alliance with Egypt was his best bet to secure his throne. He hoped that Ramesses' endorsement would quell dissenters within his kingdom, cementing his claim as the true Hittite king. International recognition was vital, especially in the eyes of powerful rulers like Ramesses. But there was more. Hattusili's potential return to Hittite politics was a constant worry. Hattusili had to prevent a coup from within his kingdom. Yet, the looming shadow from the east troubled him even more. The mighty Assyrians. They'd already snatched Hanagalbat, a territory once under Hittite control, and now they threatened to cross the Euphrates. The Hittites needed a strong ally to ward off this menacing neighbor, and Egypt fit the bill. With the treaty, Hattusili secured Egyptian support in case of an Assyrian invasion of Hittite lands. Moreover, he sought to end the rivalry over Syrian territories. Expansion southwards was neither justifiable nor desirable. With the treaty sealed, Ramesses shifted his focus to domestic endeavors, including the iconic Abu Simbel temples. The newfound warmth in relations even led to a dynastic marriage between Egypt and the Hittites, cementing their friendship. This alliance between the Hittites and Egyptians, built on mutual interests and diplomatic finesse, would endure for nearly a century. It was a testament to the power of diplomacy in an era when empires rose and fell with the tides of war and peace.